We all say we want success. We wear it like a badge in our minds, whisper it into the silence before we sleep, and post about it like it's a destination we're headed toward. But what if I told you that most people don't actually want success? They want the feeling they believe success will give them, that feeling of being seen, being admired, being fulfilled. We chase a shadow, never realizing that we've never even stopped to define what success really means for us, because that's where it starts. See, the obsession with success isn't about grinding 20 hours a day or copying someone else's routine. It's not about a mansion, a title, or being 10 steps ahead of your peers. It's about clarity. It's about understanding with complete honesty why you're chasing what you're chasing in the first place. When you don't start with that clarity, everything becomes a comparison game. You start looking left and right instead of forward. And you measure your pace against someone else's path. And when you live like that, you might end up winning, but in a race that was never yours to run. And that's not success. I've met people who had everything the world associates with success: money, influence, prestige. And yet, they still felt empty. Why? Because the ladder they climbed was leaning against the wrong wall. They never asked themselves what their personal definition of success actually looked like. They just inherited someone else's version, and it's easy to do. Society hands you a template. Family hands you expectations. Social media bombards you with snapshots of curated victories. It's loud out there, and if you're not careful, you'll let that noise become your compass. But obsession with success doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowing your why. When you know why you're doing something, you unlock something deeper than ambition. You find purpose. And that purpose becomes fuel. Not the kind that burns hot and fades out, but the kind that keeps you going on the hard days, the quiet days, the invisible days, when no one claps for you and nothing feels like it's working. Let me give you a simple but powerful truth. Success is not a finish line. It's not an event. It's not something you achieve and then it's done. Success is a direction, it's a path, and to walk that path with obsession and with joy, you need to define what it means to you on your terms. Ask yourself, what does success feel like to me? Not what does it look like, what does it feel like? Is it freedom? Is it impact? Is it building something that outlives you? Is it being able to wake up every day and love what you do? Is it peace of mind, clarity, the ability to help others? These aren't surface level questions. They're not meant to be answered in 5 minutes. They're meant to stop you in your tracks. Because once you get clear on that, your obsession isn't with success anymore. It's with meaningful success. Success that actually satisfies. Success that builds you instead of breaking you. Let me tell you about a man I once met at a leadership event. He had started 3 companies, sold 2 of them, and had more money than he could ever spend. But he told me quietly that he felt like a fraud. He said every time he reached a new milestone, the high lasted about a week, and then the emptiness crept back in. I asked him the simplest question I know how to ask. Why are you doing all this? He paused, thought for a moment, then said, because I didn't want to disappoint my father. His whole journey, his success, was built on avoiding pain, not chasing purpose. And that's the trap. If your success is rooted in proving someone wrong or living up to someone else's expectation, you may succeed, but you'll never be satisfied. Because that kind of success doesn't belong to you. It's borrowed. And borrowed dreams never fit quite right. But on the other hand, when you define success for yourself, based on your values, your passions, your beliefs, you stop obsessing over having success and start living into it. And that kind of obsession, that's powerful. That's sustainable. That's real. It becomes less about what you get and more about who you become. It becomes less about the applause and more about the alignment. You stop running toward trophies and start running toward truth. You stop reacting to the world and start responding to your own vision. That's where the obsession is born. Not from chasing, but from becoming. When you know your why, discipline becomes devotion. Sacrifice becomes investment. Time becomes sacred. You don't just work hard, you work with intention. You don't just show up, you show up with heart. And when people ask, how are you so obsessed? The answer isn't hustle. The answer is belief. So before you seek success, pause, sit with yourself, Ask the harder questions. What matters to me? What legacy do I want to leave? What would I pursue even if no one ever saw the outcome? If you don't have those answers yet, don't rush. Sit in the silence. That's where the real answers live, in the stillness, in the reflection. In the moments when you stop looking out there and start looking in here, because success doesn't begin when you reach the goal. It begins the moment you understand why the goal matters to you in the first place. And once you know that, you don't just chase success, you live it every day with obsession, with purpose, with joy. We often glorify obsession. We romanticize it. We put it on posters and quote it in speeches. Be obsessed, they say, or be average. And so we buy in. We hustle. We grind. You convince ourselves that waking up at 4 a.m. and never taking breaks is the path to greatness. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. Obsession without purpose is a fast track to burnout. It's noise, it's pressure. And pressure, when it doesn't come from belief, eventually breaks you. The kind of obsession that actually leads to success, the kind that sustains, that inspires, that builds something real, isn't born from pressure, it's born from purpose. And there's a big difference between the two. Pressure says, you better not fail. Purpose says, this matters enough that I'm willing to try, even if I do fail. Pressure is rooted in fear. Fear of judgment, fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others. But purpose? Purpose is rooted in belief, in meaning, in a deep conviction that what you're doing is bigger than your ego, bigger than your insecurities, bigger than just proving a point. When people are driven by pressure, they chase short-term wins. They look for validation. They measure themselves by likes, by followers, by metrics that feel good in the moment but fade fast. And when they don't get those things, they feel like they're failing. Because their obsession isn't connected to something real, it's connected to an image, an expectation, an illusion. But when obsession comes from purpose, the work becomes the reward. You're not doing it for the spotlight. You're doing it because something inside you knows this matters. Something in you feels right when you do it. You don't just wake up early to hustle. You wake up early because you can't wait to keep building what you believe in. And when you get knocked down, you don't quit. You recalibrate. You reconnect to your purpose, and it pulls you forward again. Think about it like this. Pressure is a weight you carry. Purpose is a fire you carry. One drains you, the other fuels you. I remember meeting a young entrepreneur who had just launched his third startup. On the surface, he looked unstoppable. Sharp pitch, big vision, bold ambition. But when we spoke privately, he confessed something. He said, I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. I don't sleep, I don't eat, I'm just terrified of being seen as a failure. That's what pressure sounds like. It's not passion, it's panic. And it's dangerous. Because no matter how strong you are, if your obsession is driven by the need to not lose instead of the desire to build something true, it will eventually take more from you than it gives. So I asked him the question I always go back to. What would you still do even if no one clapped for you? That's how you find purpose. That's how you strip away the pressure and get back to what matters. The world doesn't need more people who are obsessed with looking successful. It needs people who are obsessed with being useful, with solving problems, with healing, building, leading. Not to be seen, but because they care. Because they believe. Look at the people who've made the biggest impact in the world, not just in business, but in education, medicine, art, activism. The common thread isn't their obsession with results, it's their obsession with meaning. They were lit from the inside, driven by purpose, and because of that, their energy wasn't fragile, it was renewable. The thing about pressure is it always feels urgent, it's frantic. Be patient. It whispers, if you don't make it now, someone else will. But purpose plays the long game. Purpose says, this is worth doing no matter how long it takes. And that's what builds legacy. That's what turns effort into endurance. So what does this mean for you? It means don't confuse being busy with being driven. It means don't let the world trick you into believing that more stress equals more success. It means you have to stop and ask the uncomfortable, powerful question, am I doing this because it matters to me or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? If the answer is fear, step back. Reflect, get quiet, reconnect with what made you care in the first place. And if you don't know what that is yet, that's okay. It's not a race. Purpose takes time, it takes listening, it takes honesty. But once you find it, once you feel that alignment, obsession becomes effortless. You don't have to force it. You just are it. And that kind of obsession doesn't wear you out. It wakes you up. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. You become the kind of person who inspires others, not because you're perfect, but because your passion is real. You're not trying to impress people, you're trying to impact them. And people feel that. They trust that. The world is full of noise, full of pressure, but you don't have to live under it. You can rise above it. You can choose to build a life, a mission, a business, a career, not out of fear, but out of purpose. And when you do, success stops being something you chase and starts being something you live every single day. We live in a culture that worships intensity, dramatic gestures, viral moments, overnight success stories. Those are the things we celebrate. We idolize the breakthrough, not the build-up. But the truth is, success doesn't come from one explosive effort. It comes from the quiet, repeated, intentional acts that happen when no one's watching. Consistency will take you further than intensity ever could. We all know someone who starts something with fired up, all in, full speed ahead. Maybe we've even been that person. We go all out on day one, maybe even for a week or a month. We sprint into a new idea, a new habit, a new goal. And then the fire burns out. Not because the goal was impossible, but because the energy was unsustainable. Because intensity is emotional. It's reactive. It's a spark, not a system. Consistency, on the other hand, is quiet. It's not loud or impressive at first. It's not romantic. It doesn't grab attention. But it builds, it compounds. It turns good into great and great into extraordinary. It's the choice to show up again and again and again, not because it's easy, but because it matters. To think about anyone who's achieved something meaningful, not just big but lasting. A respected leader, a trusted mentor, a world-class artist, a successful entrepreneur. Every one of them has something in common. They kept showing up. They practiced when no one was clapping. They worked through the boring days, the hard days, the invisible days. And that's the part of success no one sees. It's the part no one posts about. We love the idea of a defining moment, a breakthrough. But those moments don't happen in isolation. They happen because of the work that came before them. The breakthrough is just the visible tip of an invisible mountain of effort. Let me tell you about a woman I once coached. She was launching a new nonprofit, deeply driven by a personal mission. She poured everything into the first few months. Late nights, big pitches, full passion. But 6 months in, the excitement faded, donor momentum slowed, team morale dipped, and she started questioning herself. She said, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this isn't working. But when we sat down and looked closer, what we saw wasn't failure. It was a pattern. The organization was growing. Slowly, steadily, month over month. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't viral, but it was working. She just couldn't see it because she was expecting intensity to carry her the whole way. What she needed was to trust the process and commit to consistency. So many people quit, not because their dream is impossible, but because it's not immediate. They expect intensity to be enough, but intensity is just the start. It's consistency that creates momentum, and it's momentum that creates results. Success, real success, doesn't ask for one grand act of greatness. It asks for small acts of courage repeated over time. It asks for discipline when motivation fades. It asks for integrity when no one's looking. It asks for the humility to do the foundational work that no one applauds. Imagine someone trying to get physically strong. They don't lift the heaviest weight once and suddenly become fit. They build a routine. They show up to the gym even when they're tired. They eat right even when no one's checking. They rest, they recover, they repeat. That's how growth works. It's not about lifting the most. It's about lifting often. And it's no difference in business, leadership, or life. Intensity is great for starting things. It's a catalyst. But if you rely on intensity alone, you'll keep starting over. You'll keep chasing the next surge of motivation. You'll be addicted to the spark and frustrated by the flame out. But consistency, that's a decision. That's a value. It's not dependent on your mood or your energy level. It's built on commitment, not emotion. You show up because you said you would. You do the work because you believe in it. And in time, you look up and realize you've built something. One of the most misunderstood aspects of success is that it should feel exciting all the time. It won't. And it shouldn't. Because when something really matters, it becomes part of your identity. You don't need it to entertain you. You need it to align with you. You don't chase dopamine, you chase depth. The obsession with success, if it's real, will show up in your routines, not your speeches, in your calendar, not just your dreams, in how you treat your craft when it's hard, not just when it's thrilling. And if you want to measure your likelihood of success, don't look at how hyped you are today. Look at what you do on the days you don't feel like it. Look at whether you keep your promises to yourself. That's where the foundation is. That's what separates the inspired from the impactful. Consistency is a posture. It's not about grinding yourself into the ground. It's about setting a rhythm you can sustain. It's about creating structure around what matters most, so that when your motivation fails, your habits don't. So what do we do with this? We shift our focus. We stop asking, how can I be more intense? And we start asking, how can I be more consistent? We stop trying to impress and start trying to improve. We stop burning out for attention and start building up for purpose. That's the power of consistency. It might not get you noticed today, but it will get you remembered tomorrow. It won't always feel good in the moment, but it will create something worth feeling proud of in the end. Anyone can sprint. Anyone can be loud for a moment, but the ones who change things, really change things, are the ones who keep walking one honest step at a time, no matter how slow it feels, because over time, consistency beats intensity every single time. There's a subtle force that influences our behavior more than we realize. It shapes our mindset, redirects our focus, and even redefines what we believe is possible. That force is the environment we choose to live in, physically, mentally, emotionally. And if you're serious about being obsessed with success, then you have to understand this one truth. Your environment isn't neutral. It's either pulling you forward or holding you back. We like to think of obsession as something purely internal, a personal fire, a trait you either have or you don't. But in reality, obsession is shaped, fed or starved, by the people we surround ourselves with, the spaces we work in, the conversations we entertain, the content we consume. You can have all the drive in the world, but if you're living in a place where mediocrity is normalized, where your dreams are laughed at, where no one is stretching, you will shrink. I once spoke to a young man who wanted to become a filmmaker. He lit up when he talked about storytelling. He stayed up late reading scripts, studying cinematography, obsessing over what made a scene powerful. But every time he tried to take the next step, move to a creative hub, apply for internships, launch a short film, he hesitated. When I asked him why, he said something I've never forgotten. No one around me thinks it's realistic. They tell me to be practical, that it's a waste of time. That's not about talent. That's not about potential. That's environment. When you're surrounded by people who can't see what you see, your vision starts to blur. When your energy is constantly defending itself, there's little left to create. And you begin questioning not just your dream, but yourself. We absorb more than we notice. If you sit in a room where no one talks about growth, where effort is mocked, where ambition is seen as arrogance, you will begin to feel ashamed of your own hunger. That's how people end up settling for lives that are far too small. Not because they lack the will, but because they lack the support. But the opposite is also true. I've seen people's entire mindset shift just by changing who they talk to. When you surround yourself with people who push boundaries, who ask better questions, who are chasing meaning, not just comfort, something happens. Your standards rise. Your excuses get quieter. Your dreams feel less like fantasies and more like plans. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, you shouldn't be. You need to be in rooms where your fire is stoked, not smothered. Where someone else's excellence doesn't threaten you, it inspires you. Because obsession isn't about ego, it's about alignment. And nothing aligns you faster than seeing someone else live at a level you didn't know was possible. But here's where it gets tricky. Changing your environment isn't always easy. Sometimes it means distancing yourself from people you love, not because you think you're better than them, but because you've decided to take your life seriously. Sometimes it means walking away from comfort and choosing challenge, from approval to purpose. And yes, that can be lonely. There will be moments where you question everything, when your new environment feels unfamiliar and the old one starts calling you back. But growth is always uncomfortable. You are redefining your normal. You are writing the rules. The most powerful environments aren't just about ambition, they're about honesty. They're not echo chambers. They challenge you. They hold you accountable. They don't let you coast. They remind you of who you said you want to become, and they call you out when you forget. I once worked with a founder whose company was starting to plateau, not because the market wasn't there, but because his team had grown complacent. Meetings fell flat. Initiative had dried up. Everyone was doing their job, but no one was thinking bigger. So he did something bold. He restructured not the company, but the culture.